Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah. Oh, you can be any.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So great to be together. Welcome to everybody, guests here and at home on the hybrid event. And thank you all for joining us for the 15th annual McCusick Lecture. I'm Helen Boucher, the Dean of Tufts University School of Medicine and the Chief Academic Officer of Tufts Medicine. I'm honored to be with you today. Most importantly, welcome to our class of 2027. I and we are so thrilled to welcome each of you to the TUSM Maine Medical Center Maine Track class of 2027. Today marks the first day of your medical school journey. I want you to look around and remember this day, soak it all in. You're going to accomplish many great things during your 4 years of education and on-site training. So many of us look around and beyond here, believe in you, and are so excited that you're going to bring all your talents to our community. We wish you good luck as you embark on this amazing new venture. I hope that you will stop and smell the roses a little bit for these next few days and weeks. You've done so much to get here, and you should be so proud of all you've already accomplished. I'm really happy to be here to talk about our partnership, the Tufts Maine Medical Center Partnership. We are in the 11th year of graduates of the Maine Track program. It's a huge endeavor that was really envisioned to help bring more doctors to Maine, and I'm thrilled that that's actually happening now. And I see Dean Peter Bates joining us, and it was partly his vision that got us here today, so I'm so grateful for that. I'm also grateful that you're going to get education about rural medicine in your training, and we know that this is a unique opportunity for all of you, and I hope that you're going to bring that to your colleagues in Boston and make sure that we're teaching each other as we go through. I'm very grateful to so many benefactors who've made this possible and are going to make your education possible. So here on the next few slides are a listing of many people and foundations who have made the Maine Track program and each of your education possible. We're very grateful to this community of benefactors who've contributed to so many scholarships and program enhancements that will make your education even better. So thanks. I'm going to go through each of these. So this allows us to deliver your education here in Maine and keep all these resources local. So many, many, many thanks. So with that, I would now like to turn the program over to Dr. Linda Chodron, Vice President of Medical Education, and Robert G. Bingyu, Chair of Medical Education at Maine Medical Center. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you, Dean Boucher. Really appreciate it. So this is the time of year, and this event in particular is really an exciting time, not just for all of you and your families and friends and supports who are either here or on the watching us on the video, on the live stream. Thank you. My technologically, I'm not so adept at the technology these days. But anyway, really excited. This is the beginning of a new academic year, and for all of us, it brings really much anticipation and excitement and joy. And the faculty, the staff, you will see them being as excited as you are. Maybe not as afraid as you are, but as excited as you are. As you have guessed, you have chosen the Maine Track because it is truly special. And there are many reasons for that. But one of the reasons is that we are committed to developing future physician workforce, not just for Maine and New England, but for rural America. And that reflects some of what Dean Boucher just said. I show this slide because, as you can see, our students also reflect the geographic diversity, and they come from us from across Maine, across New England, and across the country, including from some from very rural communities. I show this slide to tell you a little bit about our graduates so you can envision where you may be. While many of our graduates choose primary care, we also have graduates who pursue every specialty, fellowship, as well as other degrees in higher education. We're especially proud of those who have completed their residencies and fellowships, and about close to 50% of those who have completed have chosen to return to Maine or stay in Maine and practice in Maine. So we are achieving what we were hoping, which was really to help our state. Some folks who finish the Maine track leave and go do their residencies and then come back. Some stay in Maine, some choose to go off and populate other places and bring the excitement and the vision of the Maine track with them, and we welcome all of those. On our recent visits to our sites, we heard repeatedly about how our faculty and sites stay in contact with the students, and many are looking to come back to Maine after they finish their residencies elsewhere. So, speaking of faculty, we couldn't do what we do without our faculty, our educational sites, our staff across the state of Maine and New Hampshire. You'll see New Hampshire right there, North Conway. These sites are critical to your learning. And without them, we couldn't do what we do. So I want to give a big thank you to all of our faculty and our staff at all of our educational sites. And one of the things we heard when we were out on our site visits again this year was really this sense of community that is very special. We heard from hospital presidents, site directors, preceptors about how much they love having our Maine track students there. So thank you to all of them. We have many students and faculty who go above and beyond, and the list of accomplishments, the list of awards is very long. But right here you can see some of the many students who are the recipients of the highest academic awards given by Tufts each year, as well as our faculty who equally excel in their dedication and are acknowledged and celebrated by the graduating Maine track class. And these awards are given annually as well. And finally, we're very, very proud of our many faculty who are affiliated with the Maine track and have been promoted in this past year in recognition of their work. And one of those I want to highlight is Dr. Ajit Jamali, who was recently appointed the Morris S. Siegel, MD Chair of Medicine for Tufts University School of Medicine. That's a really exciting opportunity. And here are our promotions to professor and associate professor. So with that, I'd like to stop and introduce Dr. Doug Sawyer, the Chief Academic Officer for Maine Health and the Academic Dean for the Maine track.
Thanks, Linda. I'll echo Dean Boucher and Dr. Chardron's congratulations to the class of 27, as well as the thank you to all the benefactors that helped make this education possible. And as you can probably tell from what Dr. Children just showed you, Maine Health and Maine Medical Center are incredibly proud to be part of this Tufts program and be able to offer this education and help support the training of Maine's future doctors. And I want to just call out a couple of Maine Health leaders who are in the room who really have helped support this. Dr. Andy Muller, our CEO, is in the middle there. And where'd you go, Dr. Bottler? Dr. Bottler, our Chief Medical Officer of Maine Medical Center and Interim President for Maine Medical Center. So thank you both for the support. I also want to just give a forewarning to Development Office that puts these slides together that you're going to have to redo the map because I met a student from Alaska yesterday. Where are you? Good to see you. So we're going to have to add Alaska to that map. So anyway, welcome, and we're incredibly proud to be part of your education. I'd like to just introduce our speaker, who will introduce the naming of the speaker, of this talk each year for Victor McKusick. We invited Dr. Scott Remick to give this year's McCusick lecture because amongst the many different people that have trained us all, Dr. Victor McCusick was one of the people that trained Dr. Remick during his residency at Johns Hopkins in the 1980s. And we were incredibly fortunate to recruit Dr. Remick up to lead oncology services for Maine Health in 2015. And really, while I know Dr. Remick won't talk about this as much as we might like, he has reinvented the care of oncology patients across the state of Maine. And through his deliberate efforts, we will begin a hematology and oncology fellowship program for the first time. We have just begun it this year. And we have former graduates of the Main Track program coming back to join us as oncology practitioners after training elsewhere. So the naming of the lecture for Victor McCusick is because Victor McCusick had an incredible impact on medicine that Dr. Remick will explain to you, and came from Maine. And it's incredible, something that we're incredibly proud to be affiliated with. And we're thankful for Dr. McCusick's family, Reverend Victor McCusick and Lori, who are with us virtually, representing the McCusick family. So, Dr. Remick, we look forward to your lecture. And I almost forgot, Dr. Remick, we have this gift for you.
Okay.
In tradition of Main Track program, a stethoscope to add to your collection.
I'll come back to this. Oops. Am I going the right way?
Yep, you are. One more. Yeah.
Okay. So Reverend Victor McCusick and his wife Lori, I want to acknowledge them remotely. Dean Boucher, President Bottler. I'm trying to scan the audience to see where people are. And our respective chairs of medicine, Dr. Freund and Dr. Jamali. Welcome. And most importantly, welcome to the 2027 class, Main Track class. And your parents, your spouses, your significant others, you're about to embark on a special journey, and we're very excited to welcome you here. So a couple disclosures. I have no conflicts of interest other than I served my OSLR residency between 1982 and 1985 on the Longcoat firm. So I hope we're going to provide threads throughout this lecture from Baltimore to Maine, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Hopkins is steeped in medical tradition, and Maine Medical Center is steeped in medical tradition. And to my colleagues, with Doug Sawyer, come fall, you might be invited to give the McCusick lecture. I'll leave it at that. We had a respite this fall, catching up with one another. That was quite unexpected leading to this. So I am humbled by this opportunity. And I hope there's something for everybody in this lecture. This was what Hopkins looked like around the time of my residency. And to confirm that this is real, Dr. McCusick gave me a signed picture of William Ulcer at a Christmas party in 1982. And the dome of this old hospital is where William Ulcer wrote his historical book on principles and practice of medicine. So this is indeed real. So now, some other comments. What I'm about to share with you today is my take. So I'm sure I've left a lot of people out, or I may have some misrepresentations, but interpreting history, you're allowed some of that, so this is my take. And as I said at the outset, there's no institution that is more steeped in medical history than Johns Hopkins, and that was inculcated us as house officers. And I want to share with you, and we are going to have a collective imagination of medical history here in Maine. Here's my outline. I'll scan over that quickly. Dr. McCusick received his MD degree from Hopkins in 1946. He began to serve his residency at Hopkins, and at that time, with World War II, he was pulled to duties at the Baltimore Marine Hospital. What is not, given his lifelong work in heritable diseases, what is not known that he was basically a self-taught cardiologist. and developed an extraordinary catalog of heart sounds and murmurs. And then when you begin to connect the dots, you begin to understand why the Marfan syndrome might have been attracted to him. In 1957, he returned to Hopkins, joined the Moore Clinic, and from there he set up the Moore Clinic for a genetics clinic that is legendary. In 1973, he was appointed the William Ulcer Professor of Medicine, the Director of the Department of Medicine, and the Physician-in-Chief at Hopkins. His seminal contributions, without a doubt, it's extraordinary, the catalog of inheritable diseases in humans. He described Marfan syndrome and also undertook a lot of studies, seminal studies in the Amish, given their high genetic load. But what I'm going to share with you today more, I'm going to walk through some of the medical history quickly, is he reinvigorated medical training at Johns Hopkins that is a model to this very day in redefining the ulcer medical service. Now, I hazard a guess there's not anybody of my 14 predecessors who have given a lecture who will show you a picture of his brother Victor cutting down a tree, or Victor as a small child with a cow. But Victor was born in Maine, Piscataquis County. Present census 724. So you begin to see the connection to why Maine Track is so important in terms of rural medicine. He attended Tufts University but did not graduate. And he's well known for the genetics course, the summer course that's now enjoying its 65th year at the Jackson Laboratory in Bar Harbor. And his brother, as you've read in the program, was accomplished as well, rising to the Supreme Court Judicial Court in Maine. If you go to the National Library of Medicine and you look at the Odelian inheritance in man, he authored 12 textbooks that cataloged all these diseases. They were initially phenotypic characterizations. But if you look on the left-hand panel there, you begin to see the genome. The human genome was mapped in 2003. And starting that, we now have 25,000 entries in this online version that Hopkins and the National Genome Research Institute update daily from published literature. Now, this is an example. His seminal paper described Marfan syndrome in the New England Journal of Medicine back in 1979. And there are two people depicted on this slide, President Abraham Lincoln and a patient that is afflicted with Marfan syndrome. And this is what pleiotropic means. These two people, for certain, the woman has Marfan syndrome. There's a long suspicion that President Lincoln had Marfan syndrome. And there are three cardinal features of this disease that affect the ocular system, the heart, with dilatation of the aorta and an aneurysm, and valvular abnormalities and skeletal abnormalities. Now pay attention. President Lincoln is 56 years of age. I tried to find a picture to show the proportion of his limbs to his body habitus and legs. He was assassinated at 56 years of age. One of the things I think that is critical to any medical education is understanding the natural history of disease. People with Marfan syndrome usually would pass away at age 40 from a traumatic or catastrophic rupture of the aorta because of an aneurysm, because of weakness in their aortic root. So here are two people with the same disease with different outcomes. Now, if you go to online version, I'm not going to go in this in detail, but I put some of the clinical correlations at the bottom on the left. And when you go to medical, all sorts of classifications. But if you go to the site and you look at Marfan, so there are three inheritable diseases of the aortic root, all autosomal dominant. And for sake of completeness, I'm showing that trauma infection can cause an injury of the aortic valve. But just look at this. It's mapped. There's a phenotype number for 25,000 abnormalities. There's a location on a chromosome that a gene is located that accounts for the abnormality. And Victor cataloged the phenotypic expression of all these different diseases, and it's just exploded in the last couple decades. It's just a remarkable, remarkable document that's living and breathing. And when you go to the site, you see that very same picture of Victor McCusick in the front of it. And it was this work that led to his receipt or election of the Lasker Award, which is the American equivalent of the Nobel Prize. So here are my personal reflections on Victor. He had an encyclopedic knowledge of medical genetics. We had ulcer rounds, and I kind of overdid it with my enthusiasm for this lecture. I'm not going to give you the most updated what the status is now, but ulcer rounds back in the time when I trained, Victor would come around to each of the medical services twice a year. And we had to find cases with our ACS that we had interesting cardiac findings or auscultatory findings, murmurs and so forth, or any patient that had a potential genetic. And we were treated to a free lunch of what the findings were on exam or what the implications of the patient had in terms of their genetic basis for their disease. It was extraordinary. He generated ulcer lunch every Friday. I'm wearing a tie. He designed a tie for students, for medical residents, sorry, and for men, and scarves for women. And we would meet every Friday. You knew who was not on service. They were in the intensive care unit because those residents were excused from wearing their ties and scarves. He had extraordinary expectations when we presented. We called it the pit. That was Grand Rounds. So now imagine being across the street, Armstrong Hall, an auditorium about 4 or 5 times this size, big theater, this big stage, 2 stories. And the intern would have, we'd meet on Saturday from 8 to 11. We had 3 cases presented. Intern had 5 minutes to present a case. The resident would discuss it, then we'd have pathology and radiology implications. We'd have 3 cases over an hour and a half. We'd break for coffee and donuts, then there'd be a lecture for an hour. Saturday, Grand Rounds are now on Friday mornings. Our Grand Rounds are on Wednesday morning. It's amazing how times change. But you had 5 minutes. You could use 1 index card. You had to say 120 milligrams, blood pressure was 120 over 80 milligrams of mercury. Pulse was 72 and regular. Hemoglobin was 14 grams per deciliter. You had to use units for everything. He wanted it to be very precise. It was extraordinary discipline that he inculcated in his house staff, and we all did it. One of the things he also shared with us, and I suspect many in this room who are physicians will acknowledge, that your internship will be the most rewarding professional year of your life. He is absolutely right. Don't fret it. Times have changed, but you will learn more in your internship than you will in any other part of your career. He had a dry sense of humor. He was a gentle man. And I shared this perspective with one of my colleagues, and she had the same perspective before even seeing my lecture. He was a gentle man. So you think of Maine threads. And we'd have Christmas at his house, invite the house staff. He'd walk around, we'd have hot punch, and he'd walk around with a pitcher of rum and ask if you'd want a spike of rum, and then we would sing Christmas carols. It was so enjoyable. It was really remarkable. So think Maine threads. Ulcer departed University of Pennsylvania, gave a famous lecture, Equanimitas. 2 qualities that he said of a physician are imperturbability and equanimity, which defined as coolness and presence of mind under all circumstances. As I said, Victor's proudest achievement was redesigning the ulcer medical service. And think, through his training, he was concerned about a loss of collegiality. To this day, Hopkins has been the most collegial environment I have ever worked in. I was there as a resident. Maine Medical Center is not far behind and perhaps on its par. But he really valued the collegiality and the size of the house staff growing during his tenure there. He came up with, he dedicated the firm system. And he came up with 4 firms under the name of William Ulcer, the service, the founder of internal medicine, if you will, the father of internal medicine. And the first 4 chairs were each named, given the name of the firm, as you can see here. And it was headed by an assistant chief of service, who was a senior physician, usually completed their fellowship, and had come back to Hopkins. Initially, it was a 2-year term, and then became a 1-year term. And that's how then they were able to accommodate the billing aspect and supervision of the house staff. It was a remarkable, remarkable design. So a few comments on Ulcer. In these next couple slides, I'm going to really walk through. William Ulcer is regarded as the father of modern medicine, authored his seminal textbook, Principles and Practice of Medicine, graduated from McGill, rose through the ranks, came to Hopkins in 1888. Just an extraordinary clinician, diagnostician. And he redesigned residency programs as we know today in every hospital that in the country establishes or pursues. He was succeeded by Louis Barker, another Canadian physician. He served for a short period of time, a modest period of time, and he too was regarded as a remarkable diagnostician. All these physicians went overseas. Dr. Sawyer may recognize that Dr. Janeway was the one who really introduced the sphygmomanometer, the blood pressure cuff, into the clinic and what the findings of that would mean. He had a short tenure, and he too served in the military and died of pneumonia. Sidney Thayer, the first American board physician-in-chief that came to Hopkins. He had a short term as well, and he set up the first course in microscopy. And now my firm, the Longcope firm, first physician born and raised in Baltimore, and he served a long tenure at Hopkins, and he's well known for some initial descriptions of Beck's sarcoid. Now look at this slide. This is what many of these physicians early on at the turn of the 19th century were going to Europe for training. The tools they had, the disciplinary focus, think about pathology, extensive autopsy series, cardiovascular system, physical examination, hematology, infectious diseases. Penicillin isn't discovered until 1928. Inflammatory diseases. And these are the tools: histology laboratories, blood pressure cuff, bacteriology lab, microscopy. This next generation, you're going to be dealing with precision medicine, molecular medicine, artificial intelligence, how you connect nerves to technology for functional neurology, functional neurosurgery. Artificial intelligence is going to transform healthcare. It's amazing how fast our medical capabilities and knowledge and technologies are advancing. So now I want to have some fun. We're going to imagine a firm system at Maine Medical Center. And our Department of Medicine has an extraordinary history. In the last 40 years, what struck me when I looked at the first 100 years at Hopkins, the average chair served 14 years. The last 40 years at Maine Medical Center, the average chair has also served 40 years. So Aji, you are teed up well as the new Segal chair for a really extraordinary legacy. That's how you build culture. So here's my proposal for our three firms. I'm going to come back to a fourth firm. Three firms. Many in this room know Dr. Hillman and Dr. Bates. I'm glad to see them here. Dr. Hillman came in 1981, served, and there's a University of Washington connection with both Dr. Hillman and Dr. Bates. But they both served as chair of medicine. Dr. Hillman authored a seminal textbook in hematology at Maine Medical Center. Peter Bates served as chair of medicine, and I'm delighted to say that he was a main impact on me coming to Maine. I'm glad to see him here. He served as dean, interim dean, through extraordinary times at Tufts with social upheaval and COVID. So I don't think there's any dispute that these two folks are well qualified to be the Hillman firm and the Bates firm. And Dr. Blaisdell is another physician who really, from my read, set the stage for creating or establishing the Department of Medicine at Maine Medical Center. And he was an endocrinologist and a capable endocrinologist in his own right at that. So now let's talk about national leadership of education, graduate medical education at Maine Medical Center. Dr. Bingu is here, and he was the senior PI on the AGME came out with a grant proposal to re-envision postgraduate medical training, establishing clinical learning environments, excellence in clinical learning environments. This was back in 2016. And look at the institutions that received this award. That's an august list of institutions that Maine Medical Center is a part of. And this program is transforming postgraduate medical education as we are today. And Callie Veraklis has assumed some of the mantle of this. You're going to hear a lot about the iPace program. One team, one round, one note. It is transformational for inpatient care, and we're expanding this out across the healthcare system. And you see three leaders in the Department of Medicine who are involved in the residency program and the iPace program. And our outcomes show that the care team experience and communication are better, patient experience is better, and length of stay and cost of care is down. This is happening at Maine Medical Center. This is another project that the legislature has offered up, that Maine Medical Center has competed with 4 other partners to really establish an academic foundation to rural medicine. This too is starting. And Callie, who's our designated institutional official, sent this picture. I haven't met her yet, Audrey, but she's in your department. There's a Johns Hopkins student this year who matched at Maine Medical Center. So I just think this is pretty neat on the occasion of this lecture to recognize Dr. Gensheimer, who's come from Hopkins to do her residency in Maine. More threads. Let's talk about the history of medicine in Maine. There's a big gap. Between 1820 and 1920, there was the Maine School of Medicine that was at Bowdoin College for 100 years. And look at the legislature, it's the 11th medical school in the country that was established. $1,000 endowment each year the legislature promised. First class had 21 students, only 24 weeks of instruction. Can you imagine? Your student loan would be nothing, right? And they did a survey. At the time, there were 74 MDs practicing in Maine that had no formal education. And if you look at this picture, 40 years, you can't imagine what they're doing in this operating room or the surgical theater, but these are the physicians and their tools. It's kind of interesting to see how they're posing for a picture. It almost, you couldn't see surgeons posing for a picture like that this day. The school ran into trouble, but there was one physician, 86% of the graduates returned to Maine, and that's the genesis, I think, for Peter and Dean Boucher's genesis of rural medicine, the Maine Track program. The Flexner Report came out in 1910, and it was preceded by a review of undergraduate education, and then did a thorough review of graduate or medical education training. And there was one physician, Dr. Nathaniel Whittier, who was steadfast about the value of the Maine School of Medicine. And you can see here, the school was shuttered in 1920. 1920. The biggest reason, it wasn't sharply criticized, but the biggest reason probably was that the hospital, Maine General Hospital, which is the forerunner to Maine Medical Center, was based in Portland, and the medical school was based in Brunswick. But here's the short history of the medical education in the state of Maine leading up to the Maine Track that started in 2008, as you heard. So here, he was quite a character, this Dr. Whittier. He really advocated for the school. And I read at his funeral, the President, Kenneth Stills, said, in a very real sense, he was at the heart of the institution, working indefatigably on its behalf. And interestingly enough, Dr. Kahn, who's in the audience, shared with me that his daughter was the first chief of pediatrics at Maine Medical Center. So indefatigable, it's a hard word to roll off your tongue. I use word hippo to get a Latin equivalent. Sed impeger. Sed impeger. So now in Maine, we have our equanimitas. Sed impeger. Now let's turn to the Maine Track. This is a transformative program, started in 2008, and we are so happy that you're joining us for your medical education. Jennifer Heyman, who's helped me with this lecture, is the leader of the program. And you heard about our fellowship program. Johnson Liu, I'm a cancer doc, so I have to talk about our faculty here. But Johnson Liu and Jason have shepherded our we're coming upon our 4th year of the HEMONC course, because your 2nd year of training comes in Maine, and you roll up a cancer course, which will be the best course you're going to take, I guarantee it. And as you heard, there are a couple students who are serving in our oncology program, the Maine Health Cancer Network, that I could not be more proud of. Dr. Lindsay Hathaway and Dr. Hillary Glick. Lindsay is up at Maine General, and Dr. Glick is based in Brunswick. She did her rotations at Lincoln Hospital in Damariscotta, and she wants to get back there full time. And Dr. Samuel and I hope to get her there. So some final thoughts. I've talked about Dr. Jamali, our new Siegel Chair. This is his vision for the department, and I think we are very fortunate under his leadership, and you're joining our school. You're going to see the Department of Medicine take on a new trajectory. As I said, this is my group of colleagues that I am very proud of, and I get the liberty to share their expertise. 3 of our physicians have been nominated Teachers of the Year, which is extraordinary with a new program. 2 of our faculty are serving on NCI committees. This is just, and we've started our fellowship program under the direction of Dr. Vachi Tekmadian and Andrew Rogers. And we have the good fortune of recruiting 2 new physicians, a senior clinician, thought leader from Washington University in St. Louis, who's going to be joining us this fall, and Dr. Pamela Egan, a hematologist coming to us from Brown. So let's finish with a couple quotes from William Osler. It is much more important to know what sort of a patient has a disease than what sort of a disease a patient has. Excuse me. My take, that's the origins of patient-centered care and social determinants of health. The first duties of a physician is to educate the masses, not to take medicine. Now think about that. This is more than a century ago. So my take is the consumption of healthcare may not be a good thing. Now I have given you a handout. Victor McCusick would be proud because every lecture we gave or every house staff round, we always had a reference list, a short narrative. I have a complete authoritative references. You can look up the New Yorker article, and I encourage you to read it. The consumption of healthcare may not be a good thing. And the last one I really like here, the young physician starts life with 20 drugs for each disease, but ends with 1 drug for 20 diseases. How's that for value-based care? Think about it. To study the phenomena of disease without books is to sail an uncharted sea, while to study books without patients is not to go to sea at all. So now I'm talking directly to you here. If you read about your patients, they will come alive in the pages of your books and your articles, and you will be a fast learner. Another thing I want to encourage you, didn't get a chance to present a case, but we lose sight on focusing on the natural history of the disease. And the natural history of disease is not only affected by genes and environment, but the social context in which people live. And we must take that into account. And what is remarkable in our national dialogue is we don't embrace that 99.9% of the human race is identical. It's only the less than 0.1% that is not identical. And I'd like today call that McCusick space. That's the basis of the inheritable diseases. And over the next 12 to 15 years of your professional lives, you're going to be on a steep learning curve. And the most important teachers in your life are each one of you next to each other during your residency. You are going to learn more from your colleagues as you advance in your career than you will ever dream of. So 2 things I've never shared until I prepared this lecture. When I was a senior resident, my ACS, Thomas Guarneri was a cardiologist. 6 months before the end of our internship, the house staff learned that Victor McCusick was going to step down as the Ulster chief. I asked Tom, is anybody doing anything for a celebration? He said, no, well, nothing was planned. So we immediately led a house staff effort. Thomas went up, and we had a party for Victor McCusick that we scheduled in less than 6 months' time at the Baltimore Symphony. It was unbelievable. You could feel the love and admiration for that man in that room in June 1982. And then, what I've also not shared, it's not on my CV, Victor asked me, the ACS had dropped out. He asked me to be an ACS that year. I was the first resident ever to be asked to serve in that capacity at Johns Hopkins, and I turned it down. That was a difficult decision. So 2 corollaries of that. You may always wonder how things may have been different in one's life with decisions you do not make. But to be honest, I had never given this much thought until I gave this lecture. The advantage is that had I accepted, I doubt I would be here today to tell you about Victor McCusick. So for that, I'm grateful, and Doug, I thank you. And lastly, again, a perspective that puts social determinants of disease into context. Ulster said there's no disease more conducive to clinical humility than aneurysm of the aorta. So think about that. Think about genes and social determinants of health. And these last couple slides, look at the remarkable symmetry of our hospitals long ago. It's almost eerie. It's really remarkable. And I would be remiss if I did not thank, I had a lot of help doing a lot of research putting this lecture together. They're summarized here. I learned that Eric Larson and I, when I was writing a grant several years ago, we overlapped at Hopkins and really didn't even know it at the same time. And I talked about Sigrid Bird. She was on the medical house staff at Hopkins 20 years after I was. And she had the good fortune with the redesign of the ulcer service in more contemporary times that Victor McCusick was her firm faculty. So she, in fact, overlapped with him or interacted with him much more than I did. So on behalf of my colleagues in the room, Dr. Butler and Dr. Chaudron, welcome to the Maine Track class of 2027. And I was delighted to be your speaker today. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Remick. That was fascinating. And I've been in Maine about 20 years, and I did not know much, if any, of that history of medicine in Maine, so thank you. So my name is Dina Weitzel, and I'm the Assistant Dean for Students for the Maine Track. And I have what I think is the most fun part of today, which is individually introducing the members of the Tufts University School of Medicine Maine Track class of 2027. So I'd like to invite Dr. Chaudron, Dean Boucher, Dr. Sawyer, and Dean Heyman up to help pass out stethoscopes. Very excited to be the first to congratulate each of you. All right. So first up, we have Lydia Abbott. Sean Agrodnia. Maya Barrett Zanis. Elizabeth Bennett. Olivia Berger. Tatum Braun. Molly Calkins. Megna Clare. Charlotte Collins. Sally Dershowitz. Lilith Dudley Holland. William Dykes. Margaret Elder. Camley Fowler. Alexander Gato. Hiba Hamid. Emily Hillman. Morgan Honor. Audrey Hoyle. Madison Jandro. Elizabeth Janetz. Daniel Lassman. Reed Lonsdale. Olivia Lopes. Claire Mahoney. Brody Mann. Sophia Martens. Angela Minier. Amal Mohammed. Carrie Paragoy. Alexandra Rubenstein. Laurel Swanson. Ariant Talapuride. Rebecca Thompson. Willow Throckmorton Hansford. Kaylee Weaver. Lauren Weller. Hadley Wiggin. Desiree Wright. Congratulations to all of you.
One more round of applause. So, welcome everyone. So I get the pleasure of thanking everyone for coming and letting you know that there's a reception out in the next room, and we hope you will join us. We have to take a picture now, so congratulations, everyone. It is great to have you here. So have a wonderful morning and enjoy and celebrate together. Thank you.
There he is. All right, there he is right here. TUSM MMC 2027. Oh, that's so cute. We can make the party. No, I need it. Just close it up. Yeah, so I think we'll have Dr. Remick actually behind the podium. And then if you could do either side, yeah, that'd be great. Oh, if you don't mind starting over here. Yeah, if you would, or you're gonna fit. I was very
Now remember, what I didn't say. Back row, make sure you can see my belt. Otherwise, you can't see your chin. Back row, make sure you can see my belt. Otherwise, you can't see your chin.
Get out, there's that. This is perfect. Yeah, you guys did perfect. I know. He's going all the way. I'll do a little stuff lunch. So bad. I'm gonna explode. I'm like kind of quaking. It's fine. Okay, everyone, ready for your smile faces? You're gonna take it off through. So you see
Oh, we're up there.
Yes,
We're up there.
that's where you're locating. Closer, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. There's some psych.
Am I not blocking you guys? You guys all right?
We're okay. I think we're.
Okay, right there. Good, good.
We're good. We're great. No. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Good.
Oh, congratulations. Cheers.
right. Oh my God.